I now call this regular meeting of the Davenport Community School Board of Directors to order. I just want to note that Director Beck is not here tonight and Director Potts is participating remotely. With that being said, Director Hayes, would you please read the board priorities?
Yes, I'll be happy to. The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students: to provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff, and to direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impact of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. Director Passion, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Mission statement: enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. Vision statement: education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you, Director Poston. Up next for presentations, we have the presentation of the graduation, I forgot what I called it, Outstanding Spirit Award. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Schneckloff to kick us off with this. I know you're all anxiously waiting to see how this goes.
Well, first of all, I thought it was an outstanding idea.
Hey,
Mr. Potts. I think it was an outstanding idea to establish this award. And really, this award is rooted into the fact that it takes a village to raise our children. It takes a group of people. And there's no better culminating event than at graduation where the iWireless Center, the Mark, the Quad City, whatever that place is called now, and the parents are asked to be silent, to not say anything. And President Goes had the idea of let's hear that support. Let's celebrate that. The heart of this award, it's going to be a symbol that's going to be in one of our high schools picked today. That when times get tough, I want you to picture this award. I want you to picture a full arena of people supporting you, because it is difficult at times. There are challenges, and so this award will represent that there are a stadium full of people behind you as you go through your journey. And with that being said, I turn it back over to President Goza. I think he has an idea for how to award the Goza Award.
What we're going to do, we'll have, Brenda, do you have little paper ballots for everybody?
Right in front of TJ.
Oh, in front of you. So we have little paper ballots. What we're going to do is each board member is going to vote, which it has all 4 high schools already listed on here. You're going to vote which one you think was the loudest and proudest group. And then we're going to hand them all over to Superintendent Schneckloff, and he is going to announce the vote tallies. Good. Give us 1 second. Let's do this.
If Mr. Potts wants to text me his vote, I will write it in.
Mr. Potts, if you would like to text your vote into Superintendent Schneckloff, he can mark it for you. I feel like we should have had some Jeopardy music going or something. Dang. I don't know. I didn't. Okay.
Okay. Joe can run the video for you.
You can? Oh. I'm going to explain this. This is my first year as board president, so I went and had a trophy made. We're going to start a new tradition. This is a traveling trophy. It is called the Graduation Outstanding Spirit Award. This is not for you to win. This is for all of your family and friends in the audience to win for your school. So how this is going to work, in a minute, I'll have you all stand up and look out and wave at all your family and friends that are here today to support you. And we're going to see how loud of applause and cheer for you they can be. Whichever school has the loudest applause will get this trophy. It will have engraved on the side the school name as well as the year. And it will set in that school on display for the whole year until the next graduation. I didn't get to explain this on the first one because I had all the graduates stand up and then all the parents went crazy. So we're going to see how loud you guys can get in here and see if they can hear you across the street. Also with that, I really have to thank Linda Roseman and Trophy King for making this up for me on such short notice and making it happen for me. So with that being said, seniors, will you all please stand up? Look out into the audience at your posse that's here. Let's hear it. Graduates, I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Look out into the crowd, find your family and friends, and wave at them. And I hope you guys are really, really loud. Go ahead, you guys can stand up. Now look out to the crowd and find your family and friends. Thank you, Joe. It was way louder and more intense in person, I will say that, and especially being up on the stage and looking out and seeing all that, it was awesome. Are you ready with the...
I am ready. I had this very dramatic read off in my mind, but the vote was unanimous. All 7 votes went to Davenport Central. So, Mr. Flynn, if you would come up here, please.
Oh, you got to give a speech, man.
Hold on, Dan.
What? Speech? Come on. And no liquids on there.
Okay. I just want to echo what Mr. Schneckloss said. I thought this was an outstanding idea. Our parents were revved up, and it truly is a celebration. And oftentimes, we don't get to treat it, at least during the ceremony, like the celebration that it is, and that it has the meaning that it does for the families and parents. So, honestly, on behalf of the graduating class of 2021 at Central High School and our families, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
thank you all for coming out and supporting your respective schools. We greatly appreciate it. Moving on to board reports. Are there any board reports? Director Poston.
I'd like to thank Josh Hermansky, our operations director, spending some time with me last week. Part of a day we visited school properties other than school buildings, and just to get a feel for what's out there. And we will be starting on our long-range planning facility plans, and there's a lot of buildings out there that we need to take a look at and to incorporate into our plan.
Director Snyder.
I don't know if this technically counts as a board report, but it does now. I wanted to thank the Times for the outstanding article they did on North's dual enrollment program. I'm very, very glad to see that they're highlighting some of the things that make our district unique and as wonderful of an opportunity for our students as it is. So I wanted to thank them.
Any other board reports? I will echo what Director Snyder said. Mr. Watt, it's nice to see you back in person. We appreciate it. Also, I can't believe no one else jumped on this, but we had a committee of the whole right after graduation, so which we probably should have not had a meeting after that. But again, graduation was awesome for all the staff and everyone that helped put that together, as well as thanks for indulging me and letting me get them to get loud and proud, because sometimes they get a little weird on that stuff. So, but again, congratulations to all the graduates, all of our staff that helped them get there and make that day a great day. So I appreciate it very much. Any other board reports? Director Hayes.
And echoing that graduation, Central was so loud you could actually feel the stage rumble a little bit, so there was spirit there. But on another note, the board would certainly like to express our sincere condolence to Director Klein Jerome in the passing of her mother on last week. Her visitation and services were last Friday and Saturday, so we extend our heartfelt condolence and sympathy to you and your family.
Any other board reports? Seeing none, I'll move on to communication. Open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The open forum request is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or online for those who want to participate in open forum virtually. The link is located on the school board page of the district's webpage. The link is of the district's webpage. For those who want to participate virtually, the request must be emailed to Brenda T at tbren@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting. The board will not act on any issues presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Anyone not in attendance but wishing to speak at open forum that had filled out their open forum request virtually, call 563-445-5001 and enter the conference ID. We have 3 open forum requests for in-person. And Brenda, do we have any virtual? No virtual. We will go with 2 minutes, and we'll go in this order. I have Sally Ellis, Adriana Mayfield, and I said your name wrong, Jason Hauser. Miss Ellis, if you would step up. And when you go to talk, please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Sally Ellis, and I live at 2216 North Nevada in Davenport. And I've always been very proud of our district, having retired after 33 and a half years as a head custodian. But we are in trouble with the state. Families are leaving our schools. We are struggling to be the district of choice. Years ago, we had 18,000 students. I was alive then. And they turned out well educated without that many administrators. Today, we have around 13,000 students and losing yearly more students. Oh, thank you. So now we've added 8 more administrators at 180,000 each because the work is more. But with 5,000 less students that we had before, saying to all employed in the ad building, please pull up your bootstraps and eliminate the 8, get busy and do the work. You also appointed coaches, this is number 3, you also appointed coaches for teachers. More money spent. The teachers know their jobs. The principal and assistant are the coaches. If you want to spend money, and you need to, in the schools, hire more counselors and paras. Better use of money here. The real work is in the trenches. All our schools, teachers, and staff, that is where it's at. Yet you dishonor them with 2-point-something% raises while padding the ad building. So wrong. As always, paid a search, this is number 4, as always paid a search company a lot of money to find a super. Found one, interviewed, paid his plane ride here to interview, and then paid his plane ride back. Plus, we paid for the hotel room that he stayed in while he was here. And then when we chose him, get this, we paid his moving expenses, all with taxpayers' money. Employed about 3 years, maybe a little more, and now we're paying for his retirement deal. Then the administrators was filling in the job. To start with, gets the job, as he should have. So much for the taxpayers, so much money wasted on the search. Our district, this is number 5, our district hard up for money, you sell school building. We put millions into it for peanuts. Huge monies offered that would have helped all of our students. You turned that down. Guess it's no matter. Asking these questions, because I don't know the answer. Did you agree to pay for utilities after the sale for 2 months for that building? And is our maintenance servicing the boiler after the sale for the first year? Number 6, taxpayers want more accountability. That's what we pay for. I would suggest that as your term, some of the board members, not, I don't know all of you, I don't know anything about you, could possibly go ahead and retire so that we have fresh faces on the board, not be on it for so long. And I'm also objecting to too many yes votes for every motion presented. With all of our state problems, we could have new members to give us a fresh try to save our district from the money hole and state problems that need fixing. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Miss Ellis. Next up, we have Miss Mayfield. Again, when you step up to the mic, please say your name and address for the record.
Okay. Hello. Most of you guys have already met me. I'm Adriana Mayfield. I am a senior at Davenport Central. I live at 1143 East Denison Avenue, Davenport, Iowa. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Anaya Smith. I'm also going to be a senior at Central High School.
So today we came to talk to you guys. We are kind of concerned right now about Davenport Central girls basketball not having a coach. It's been about 6 weeks for us since the hiring and interview process had started, and we still have no feedback on a coach, if there's even a recommendation of a coach, anything. It was brought to my attention that both North basketball boys and West girls, their interview and hiring process started after ours, and they now have a coach filled in the position. I think our biggest issue is, especially as a team, we had a conversation. We feel like we're at a disadvantage right now because June 1, we're able to start high school workouts, summer leagues, tournaments, and pre-COVID summers, our freshman year, we did camps, we did North Summer League, we did tournaments, we worked out 3 nights out of the week. We haven't been able to do any of that. And I think the last 2 seasons, we've had really good building seasons, and this is a huge setback for us, not being able to get into the gym this summer without having a coach. Without a head coach, we can't do anything. So hopefully this is something that can be resolved a little quicker before summer comes to an end, because we need to get into the gym immediately to work out. Anything you got? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ladies. Mr. Hauser, you're up. Again, make sure you state your name, full name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Jason Hauser, 781 West Walcott
Push-
Road,
Oh, it's on.
in Walcott, Iowa. I apologize, I'm very nervous. I'm not a public speaker. I actually never envisioned that I would feel the need to come and address you guys. I personally believe that Iowa is a place where the majority of people genuinely do care about our children and our children's future. However, it recently came to my attention, the Mississippi Bend Area Education Agency had mandated for their staff and teachers to take critical race theory training. Now, I know it's a hot topic, but I personally very much believe that critical race theory is in itself absolutely racist. Teaching that to our children, or even to the teachers, administration staff who are close to our children, to me is not acceptable. Additionally, it is against the law now in the state of Iowa. House File 802 was passed June 8th, which does explicitly prohibit the teaching of divisive ideas, racial and sexual prejudice, and so on. I would like to know, to set my mind at ease, that this sort of thing is not going to be in Davenport schools. I'd also like to know, because I couldn't really find out, what exactly the Mississippi Bank Area Education Agency, what their authority, if any, is over the Davenport School District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. All right, we will now move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Klein Jerome. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation to adopt the bills from the bill listing period of 6/9/21 to 6/22/21. Whereas resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the treasurer, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants, drawn on the Treasury for several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented by the periods of 6/9/21 to 6/22/21.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hayes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Postian?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Superintendent report. Superintendent Schneckler.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to fulfill one of our recent board requests on salaries, compensation in our district, and briefly describe some of our most recent cabinet changes. So I'd like to start off with the reminder that our cabinet, our restructuring of our cabinet, is actually a net reduction in administrators at the central office, and over our 5-year projection is saving the district $220,000 a year, which is about $1.1 million over the course of our 5-year projection. Throughout this change, the thought process behind it is that we are moving away from having 3 associate superintendents / executive directors to moving to more of a balanced approach. Throughout our citations, we realized that we needed a more leveled approach, a more horizontal and vertical system that allows for better collaboration. So one of the board requests that came in is let's take a look at the salary compensations in our district. And what I have asked, and very fortunate to have Gary Sinclair in person today. So Gary, thank you so much for joining us today. Gary has been joining us virtual. For those of you who don't know, Gary Sinclair is our financial advisor. He is he's been a superintendent in the state of Iowa, but also is somebody that is very respected across the state in terms of finance. And so we worked together over some numbers today, Mr. Decker, myself, and Mr. Posticani, to review kind of a little walk back about the restructuring and different positions that we have in our district, but also to kind of describe what does the landscape of the rest of the state look like. Because I want to make it very clear that not all of our administrators received huge raises. And so we kind of wanted to kind of show where the organizational structure that we have and what does it look like, where does it fall in the rest of the state. And so in order to do that, all of the data that you're going to see today is from the Department of Education, BEDS reports that can be found by anybody on IESB. And so, Gary, if you wouldn't mind kind of walking us through that and sharing that with us. And first of all, thank you for being here, Gary. You've been an excellent resource for Davenport Community Schools to help get us in the place of solvency that we are right now. Couldn't thank you more on the behalf of the school board. The knowledge that you brought, we really appreciate you being here. It's outstanding to have you in person. So thank you so much for coming today, and thank you so much for being a part of this presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Much of the Bill Decker put together part of this presentation, and it all is sourced from the Iowa Association of School Boards, which is data from the Basic Education Survey through the Department of Education. No, the one on the right, the UEN comparison. What we've done is to put together the urban educational network districts, the 8 districts that are the original members of that group, the larger districts in Iowa. Okay, if you click on the sheet 1, and if you go to the top, what we've done is to, first of all, start off with a graph of the districts. And then we'll show you the data that supports it. But these are the superintendents in Iowa. And all of the data you see is fiscal year 21, unless otherwise noted. And in this case, Iowa City, we know the actual superintendent's salary for next year, and we know Davenport's actual salary for next year. And you can see that of the 8 districts, Davenport is the 5th highest. Now that's comparing them next year's salary for the superintendent in Davenport to other districts this year. Now, if you click on the other tab, please. And if you go to the top, this is the supporting data. And all of this will be posted. But essentially what this does, this is all the background data that shows you the certified enrollment, their total salary, the retirement, and the salary and retirement. We put salary and retirement together because under retirement, not only do you IPERS, but sometimes you have some type of retirement benefit. So you can see here that this is the 5th out of 8th with an average being 301,000. Anything to add? Anybody? Okay, if you just cursor down here, we'll show the charts, but this is assistant superintendents. Now, for next year, Davenport doesn't have any assistant superintendents. So you can see that this year, fiscal year 21, Davenport's assistant superintendents would have been 6th out of 6 in comparison to the other school districts in the UEN. The reason there's only 6 listed, if the districts don't report data, we can't pull it. So obviously that's why it's 6 out of 6. But part of the strategy was not to have assistant superintendents. So what we have is the Davenport regional directors for fiscal year 22. And you can see their salary is about 180,000 total. And I think, and again, I'm going to tell you my basic understanding was that by doing away with assistant superintendents, that they were going to have regional directors that were going to be somewhere between building principals and assistant superintendents. They were still going to supervise principals, so they needed to be higher than principals, but lower than assistant superintendents. And that's why there are no assistant superintendents. I think there were 3 cut at the district level. So that's why we show assistant superintendents and then the Davenport regional directors for fiscal year 22 separate. Bill or TJ, anything to add to that?
I think it's critical to note that that is exactly the reasoning for that. We don't have associate superintendents. The surveys and everything that was found that we needed to ensure that we had a horizontal system, an equal system that goes across there. So our CFO, our operations, all of those pieces carry the same weight as the instructional pieces in our district, because those are the pieces that kind of got us off course in the past. So that is exactly right. When we look at across the state, there are high school principals, and we're going to get to that next, that make that dollar figure. And so we needed to find a spot in between associate superintendents and administrators, and that's where that regional director salary came from.
Okay, if you want to go on down a little bit and go to the right, the far right, if you would, what we've done is we've got elementary, middle school, high school. Well, not too far over, I guess. There's some charts in between right there, all principals. So you can see that we've brought all the principals together. And what we've tried to do is the average salary. And you can see that this is salaries and retirement. And you can see that Davenport for the fiscal year 21 is 7th out of 8 in the UAN schools. On the right, it's the number of kids that principals are typically responsible for. There's a breakdown of each level, but the far right shows all principals in the state. Okay? If you go back to the left and down a little bit. This is the HR personnel managers. And you can see that there are 6 districts that list HR. All of these are for fiscal year 21 except Davenport. And you can see that with this, Davenport will rate 3rd out of the 6 that are listed, with Davenport's being fiscal year 22. We don't know what increases occurred for the other districts. And actually, Cedar Rapids with a 2.8% increase is going to be 80,000 something. I think if you go to the right just a little bit, if they get the same as was that the same as teachers, Bill? Yes. That would be 180,616. So that would actually put Davenport's HR personnel at 4th out of the 6. The next one down is school business officials. This is your business manager. If you go to the left a little bit, you can see the school district. You can see that although these are all fiscal year 21, Davenport's fiscal year 22 will be 4th out of 8. Probably not enough that it's going to change. The percentage is going to change that rank order. But again, it's the same as the HR director also. So that puts them 4th out of the 8. The next one down is the operation director. 6 districts. Now, I think all of these districts are big enough to have operations director, but my guess is some of them list them as assistant superintendent. And that's why they don't show when we do a search for that. But the operation director, again set at the same salary level, would be 2nd out of the 6 that have reported. I also was asked to add teachers, and you can see in the next column, now this is all salaries and retirement benefits, and you can see that of the 8 UEN districts, Davenport's would be 5 out of 8. Now that's all salaries, not just regular salaries. The next section are the paraeducators. Now this is full-time. We chose special ed because that is by far and away the majority of the paraeducators. And you can see that Davenport's are 2nd out of 8 in paraeducators. We actually are working to do office staff, but when we use the BEDS document, we really couldn't clarify exactly where that was. So we will continue to gather that data, add it to the document, and post it on the district's website. So this was the comparison data that we were asked together. Are there questions about this?
Again, this is based off of one of our board reports, asking to see this kind of information so the board can charge administration with setting the focus. I think it's really important to note that for sharing this information, it is a finance committee charge to begin those negotiations and bargaining items earlier, so we can begin to project a lot better. And so, again, this fulfills one of our board requests. And so at this time, that concludes the superintendent's presentation. Bill, would you like to add something? Sorry about that, President Goza.
If I missed this, I apologize, but I really don't, because I want it to be emphasized. The total effect of this is $220,000 per year, and if TJ said that, he looks like he might have. I'm just re-emphasizing that, and it is a reduction in the number of administrators for the district for FY22.
That concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you very much, President Goza.
Are there any questions? I have one myself. And this might be a Gary question, or Kevin, whoever can answer it. So I see you have us placed out of 8 or whatever on all these. Where, with the size of Davenport's district, where should we be at in that? Because that's going to be one of the things. I know we don't have all of the groups on here, and I'm hoping we get that. and we can kind of work out a game plan to get our groups to where we are, where we should be. So my question is where should we be rated out of that 8? Should we be the 3rd, the 4th?
I think one of the biggest things that we can do is make our district as competitive as possible across all of the bargaining units. That's one of the things that we have to set out to do. And how we accomplish that, I think you guys have already given us that charge, as you've talked about in the past. Everyone's talked about in the past. In order for us to be competitive, we have to be right sized. So what does that look like? And so that's one of the first things that we have to begin to look at. Gary, would you have anything to add to that?
I don't. It's really a local decision. Every district has its own challenges and its own strengths. And obviously, staff are your most valuable resource in meeting the needs of kids. So I would just emphasize to do as much as you can, but it's really a local charge.
So I guess I'm going to clarify my question. Where should we be at as Davenport Community School District on this spectrum? Are we under? Are we over? Where? So we kind of know, because obviously myself, I would like, and I think the rest of the board is there, we need to get our staff up to where they should be. And then we're going to have to start having the conversations if it's, do we close 2 school buildings and build one that's more efficient with better classrooms and things to better benefit the student and have more direct impact in the classroom? We're going to have to start those conversations. So I kind of want to know where we're at, and whoever can answer that question, or what should we be, what should our goal be, 3rd out of 8 or whatever. That's kind of where I'm at, because we're going to have to start these conversations sooner than later to right size the district, whether we have too many buildings are over capacity and we need to build better buildings or whatever. But that can be for another discussion. And did anyone have any other questions?
Just a comment. Shouldn't we be about 3rd, since we're the 3rd largest district, if we're looking at it that way?
I was trying to get that answer out of them, but they weren't going to give me that.
But I also think we need to look at our surrounding districts that won't be on these, because that also, to make us competitive, we need to be aware of what other districts in our area are giving.
Thank you.
All right, nothing else. We will move on. Committee reports. I see we have one for Finance Committee. You got a presentation on that?
Yes, we do. We did, but did you want to do other?
Yeah, let me do. Director Snyder, do you have an LZAC committee report?
Nope.
I'm drawing a blank. Policy committee report, do you have anything for that? All right, we're going to go right on to the Finance Committee report.
So we have been working very diligent at putting together our projections. Jamie Weinzerl, Kevin Poscani, and the staff have really been drilling down. I have to say, over this process, I commend HR and finance and our buildings for really digging in and finding out exactly where are we. I know that we've set a charge in the future. I call it a right click. I want to right click and I want to know exactly. And those 2 departments have come together, and I have to tell our school board that is very promising. The ability to forecast exactly where we are is absolutely critical. And we're in better shape now to forecast than we've ever been. We have a long way to go in terms of being able to absolutely forecast where we're going. We have a lot of variables that feed into that. But I have to commend our finance committee. I have to commend our finance working group, because we dug it. We're digging in, and we are really having open and honest, transparent conversations. And so tonight's report that you're going to see was put together by Kevin and his team at the direction of Gary. And we are going to go through exactly where we think we're going to be. And to steal Gary's line is that we have a 5-year plan that needs to be revisited every year. I know I messed that up, Gary, but that's the essential components of it. and we had wonderful conversations about where are we and where are we going, and that's the direction we're heading. And so I know that we have had a difficult time, as you say, and you've been here for, you have quite a bit of experience in our district, and this is what is going to absolutely set us on a course. And I'm very proud of the work that was done. So with that being said, let's jump into our key reports and then in our projection model.
Brenda, if you'll go to the monthly one first. So first of all, this is your monthly report, and you'll notice that this is through the month of May. We're pretty well done with June, but June is our end of fiscal year, and a lot of heavy lifting that our staff will be doing to get accruals and so forth. But just like I do every month, remember this is 91.67% of the year at this point in time. The key parts of this that I put in yellow, there's one I did not. When you see the federal revenue on the first half of that page is sitting at 68% of the budget. We know that's lagging behind, but we also realize that the state is a little bit slow in making their federal payments. Also remember, this is 2 of the 3 months into the quarter, so those revenues that we should expect to get are quarterly. So we've got a little gap in there, but when we come to the end of the year, it'll be right where it belongs. With that, you'll notice the total is 90% through the year and is exactly where we should be. So even with that little bit of a downturn on federal revenue, in total, we're right where we belong. On the expenditure side, you'll see our total expenditures are sitting at 90%. Again, we're hitting the mark of that 91.67% of the year. We're right where we belong, and you'll see at the end where our ending fund balance is sitting at $29 million. In all of those situations, again, I always say trend. You look across the trend of where we are. Expenditures are down a bit. Revenue is pretty steady, knowing with the lag, it's still going to be up. And our ending fund balance is trending in the right direction. The other part on page 2 of that, and this is going to be a agenda item, an action item later in the meeting, all the way to the bottom. You'll see the total of our nutrition fund and our other fund for our out-of-school time fund. We know those are out of sequence, so to speak. They are going to be negative when we get to negative or close to zero when we get to the end of June. In both of those funds, there's a lot of year-end entries that happen that will change that ending balance. These are the 2 that I highlighted because in an agenda item coming, we will be requesting a transfer of funds into both of those with ESSER funds to bring that ending balance to an average of what it has been on an average of the last 3 years prior to COVID. That is why I highlighted those. Any questions on that?
I'd just like to make a comment and just make sure everybody understands. Having $29 million ending fund balance does not mean we have the authority to spend that $29 million. So don't think, oh, well, you're sitting on $29 million. We do not have the authority to spend that.
Okay. Other questions?
I am, as I look at our projection, I'm concerned about the federal dollars. That got us in trouble last year. And that's one of the reasons we ended up so close. Our federal dollars were way down last year. And we expect them to rebound, but I'm concerned about where that's at right now. I hope that we have spent that dollars and that we'll get because our spending level is where we expect it to be. But the federal dollars concerns me, and I hope it's something that we do get in the next month and a half.
Are there any other questions? Director Potts, did you have any questions? I'm going to say that's a no. And you have another report to report on,
Yes,
correct?
Brent, if you go to that other report. This report shows, again, 91.67 through the month of May. And you'll see our trends of our key measures. Our unauthorized budget ratio is that first one at 5.6%. Yes, that's in the low end of the acceptable level, but when you look at the trend going across, it takes a little while to get that moved up, but we're trending in the right direction. We're very close to our budget. We're a little bit ahead of where we projected budget. So that's good news. And on the annual unspent authorized budget, where you see that we're sitting at 95.4% of the budget used. June is a little bit lighter month. I know that's higher than the 91%, but June is a short month for us in the general fund. So it's still a little bit ahead of where we projected, just by 0.1%, but it's right where we're anticipating. And on the solvency ratio, you'll see it's at 12.7%. Again, that's trending in the right direction. It's at a healthy level, so we're solvent and we're doing pretty well in that area. If you go to the last page, and I said this before last month, but if you remember, we had to amend our budget with some adjustments for some errors, for some calculation errors. You'll see our projected budget in the yellow is at $213 million, and in all four categories, we are still within our variance. It's something our auditors will look at, and it's not unusual for schools to be a little bit under in one of those categories, but I believe we're going to be just fine where we're at. So our amendment was a good choice for how we adjusted that. We had to adjust it, but we adjusted it in the right way so that we're within our published budget. Any questions on that?
Director Potts, did you have any questions?
No, Dan, if I have questions, I will chime in.
All right, well, I just didn't want you to feel left out.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right, well, thanks, fellas. We appreciate it. Thanks for making the drive all the way down here, too, Gary. We greatly appreciate it.
I think I'm going to start the next piece. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Brenda, there was a Word document that I sent you. I had a nice little thing that I made up, a little graphic for the Finance Committee that I'm not able to share. But when you do financial projection, you need to be careful that you're not so pessimistic that you project the worst case scenario, or that you're so optimistic that you project a rosy picture that's not reasonable. We need to do what we think in our best professional judgment is correct. We try to avoid using the words guess or hope, because neither of those are good strategies. So what we want to try to do is to work to develop the best professional judgment. Where do we think we'll be? The quote that TJ was looking for is, this is a 5-year model with a 1-year decision-making cycle, is that before you actually have to make decisions, you will know data. Right now, we know the data for next year. But before we make decisions about fiscal year 23, we'll know enrollment. We'll know supplemental state aid. We'll know taxable evaluation. We will know those variables so we can make changes. But I want to talk just quickly about how did we get here tonight. First of all, we started with our base in October. We looked at all of our salaries and benefits for October. That's our base and our modeling. We then subtracted the mid-year reductions. 14 regular ed teachers, 7 special ed teachers, and some outside of general ed. And then mid-year, we transferred about $650,000 from our regular general fund expenditures to our title programs in our general fund. Now, the numbers 1 through 5, we covered extensively with the Finance Committee. And really, the biggest piece is we looked at staffing. Jamie and her team looked at where were we last October when we developed this base. Where are we today, and where do we think we will be next year? There's an extensive spreadsheet that was developed to clarify all of the different levels and where we have been and where we are going. We took an extended look at our special education balance. It continues to vary some, but not greatly. We looked at the state compliance cost, how much it's cost the district under the state's compliance requirements. We've looked at our categorical balances and ESSER. We wanted to make sure that all of our federal dollars, all of our categoricals were spent, so we didn't project a positive balance that was based on our categoricals. So we tried to take those out of the equation. We then went and worked with the Finance Committee on our key revenue assumptions. We worked with the Finance Committee, that's in Forecast 5, and we worked with the Finance Committee on our key expenditure assumptions. So that's the background of how we got here today, is that we've worked with the Finance Committee to come up with an agreement of what do we think is our best professional judgment for what's going to happen in the future. With that being said, we're going to present to the board the key assumptions, not 150 of them, but the key assumptions and the results of those assumptions. I would ask that at the next meeting, the board take action to approve those, because this needs to be a board projection model, not the Finance Committee, not the superintendent, not some individual. So at this time, unless there's questions about how we got here, we'd like to look at the key assumptions. So Brenda, if you could go to that report that says the board ready report.
Did you email it? Is it in here?
Yep, it's that second one there. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you. That's got to be awful hard to just run that. This is where where I'm sitting at home and doing it, it's a lot easier. So if you click on the tab that says key assumptions, and what these are the things that drive our budget the most. And so you can see a certified enrollment. That is one of the top 2 or 3 drivers for our finances. And really what we did is we took a 5-year rolling average. Now, we took out last year because of COVID, and we took out this year because of COVID in that average. But we've really done a 5-year rolling average. And you can see from that we see that although we're going to be up this fall, because we think we'll get some COVID enrollment back, we're down anywhere from 170 to 200 students a year for the next 4 to 5 years. Underserved enrollment, we have increased open enrollment out by 85 kids. Now, to date, I think we've got about 84 that have open enrolled out, a lot due to the most recent change in Iowa law. Preschool enrollment, we see rebounding back to its previous level. Supplemental state aid, we've put it 2%. If we set this at 0 every year because we want to be pessimistic or we want to be conservative, we don't need a report. It is a train wreck. So what we've done is what we think is the most reasonable. Dropout prevention, we've set at our maximum. We've put in the instructional levy at the current level. Cash reserve, we've actually varied to get a tax rate. The public typically wants one thing, for the tax rates to go down. But if they can't go down, at least to be consistent. So we've set the tax rate at a constant amount. We actually think that in the next few years, it will be able to fall some. But we've set the cash reserve high to keep it at that level. Taxable valuation, we've got a 2.5% increase. When we look at our SBRC, if you look down, you'll see our special ed amount. We've included what the state recently approved for asbestos. We've included what we plan to request in the fall for the state compliance cost and all the other things that go into the SBRC. In that bottom section, you can see our changes in salaries and benefits, our purchase services, our supplies and property. The next section talks about staffing changes. And you can see that for next year, we've got quite a few. That we actually show that our gen ed staff is down about 15. Now, we had retirements of 14 gen ed and 7 special ed. So really, we're not down as much as we thought we might be, but most of that has been changed to categoricals at the federal level. We've actually, we show a 2.6 reduction in administration. We actually have more paras. We have some technical positions down, office clerical down, and operational down. Those are all reductions that we plan on for next year. And this is really Jamie and her team's work at looking at where we were last October, where we are now, and where we think we will be. Now, we have intentionally not built any reductions in for the future. That is something that we will likely be able to do or need to do if we go down 180 to 200 kids a year. If you go on down, you will see our projections of our PEPL, our regular and voted PEPL, and then our management fund dollars. We've tried to start to build management fund to maintain the level that we're at. This single page tells the board the key assumptions that we're making about the future. Once you get a chance to look at this, and when you come back next month and we're ready to vote on it, if you're not comfortable with the enrollment, if you're not comfortable with the supplemental state aid, we need to talk about that. Because this is your projection, your decision-making model. Are there questions about the assumptions or anything that the Finance Committee would like to add? Okay, if you click on that next tab, these are the key results. The first thing we'll see are our fund balances. Now, you can see that our cash and general fund trends down, but we still have a substantial amount. You can see all of our other funds maintain a reasonable balance. Now, capital projects, and in your case, that sales tax, we've not developed a sales tax plan yet of what we're going to do for facilities. So that number won't continue to grow. Our debt service, which is borrowing from sales tax, will end in 25. So in 24, we're actually using the accumulation that we have. The next section is the tax rate. And you can see it's been set at 15, 20, Yes, 1529. And again, I think that will be able to trend down unless we get some unexpected outcomes at the state level. Surtax, we do not have any. And at the bottoms are the two big measures. What happens to our unspent balance? And in fiscal year 19, the district was negative $12 million. We expect our unspent balance to grow over the next several years, so we come up with a balance that is closer to 10%. Iowa Association of School Board recommends 5 to 15, not to exceed 25, so we're working toward that middle range. This makes the district financially healthy. The bottom part is solvency. And you can see we're trending down because we're spending some of the cash down. But it's still, ISB recommends 5 to 15%. Matching solvency and UAB rate is a good practice. This single page tells the board and the public what we expect the future to hold for us. And one of the things that it's important to point out is if we were showing a negative unspent balance, or if we're showing unspent balance falling drastically, no reasonable action would be to accept that. And each year we need to monitor this and make changes as things change. That's our 5-year projection model. That's how we got here. We will ask you in July as a board to approve this so it becomes owned by the board. What questions do you have?
Gary and Kevin, just to clarify, on July 12th at our regular meeting, you will want us to vote on the key assumptions and results. Is that correct? So that can make sure the board asks any questions they need to feel comfortable to vote on that at that meeting.
That's right. That's how we believe that the board will get ownership, is to look at those variables, accept those assumptions as a board and move on. I can promise you they're not going to be all exact. There are going to be variances. There are going to be changes. And that's why you have to look at it every year.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions on this? Because we'll vote on it at the July 12th meeting. Director Poston?
Just one thing, and Karen and I met with Gary and Kevin and TJ, is, you know, that one of the big unknowns is enrollment, and so we may have to make some adjustments once we know what the certified enrollment is. And but going into next year, we're okay. It's the following year where there could be, you know, some big differences, and so then, you know, that will impact what we have to do with the budget.
Thank you, Director Poston. Director Hayes?
No, is it still October that we certify enrollment? Okay, thank you.
One of the questions we've had is the equity law that affects the 5 school districts in Iowa. Open enrollment essentially becomes open until September 1st. It will not affect the certified enrollment, because if the people are open enrolled out, they still live in your district. The issue becomes paying tuition for that.
Is there any other questions or information you would need to be able to vote on this at the next meeting?
Mr. President?
Director Potts?
Yeah, I would think with that out-migration that we're dealing with now, we need to develop, superintendent and his team need to develop a plan to combat that, to be very proactive and very effective in making sure parents and students understand the advantages and the program advantages that exist in this district for them. Because if we cannot stem the declining enrollment issue in our district, it's going to be a continuing anchor on our ability to advance.
Thank you, Director Potts. Any other questions or comments? Is there any more presentations?
No,
I'll
that's
cut
the
'em off
final
this time.
presentation.
Well, thank you again for coming.
Yep.
I prematurely thanked you last time, but thank you again.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to items requiring action. May I have a motion on subject 9.01?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes?
I move the board approve the yoga in school service agreement with Challenge to Change in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
Seconded by Director Kleindrum. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Kleindrum?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. The reason why you might not hear a lot of discussion is because we've already talked about this at a previous meeting. Just so everyone knows, we try to talk about it at one meeting prior, so if we need more information, so we're not voting on it all at once. May I have a motion on subject 9.02?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation to approve ST Math Annual Service Renewal Agreement with Mind Research Institute in the amount of $51,933.50.
Second.
Seconded by Director Kleindrum. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Kleindrum?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.03?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board approve the policy committee's recommendation and approve policies 501.02, 501.16, 502.01, 502.02, 502.06, 502.09, and 503.03.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Poston. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.04?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the fund transfer of $41,000 from ESSER funds in the general fund to be moved to the out-of-school time fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Klein-Jerome. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.05?
Mr. President,
Director Poston.
move that the board approve a fund transfer of $304,656 from the Food and Nutrition Fund to the General Fund to cover indirect costs of custodial, utilities, and maintenance, and approve a fund transfer of $440,000 from ESSER funds in the General Fund to the Food and Nutrition Fund.
Second.
Seconded by Director Klein-Jerome. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion on item 9.06?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the local school improvement advisory committee charge as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Klein-Jerome. Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
Just a quick overview. In the past, we really haven't had something with the LZAC committee that lays out how this committee plans to interact with the board and vice versa. And we felt at the committee it's extremely important because that committee is there for one purpose: improving the schools. And so if we're not on par with board goals and we're not working to the same end result, then the committee is really not doing the board any good and vice versa. So we wanted basically to let the board know this is what we plan to do. We plan to communicate with you and basically put it in writing that this is how it's going to work.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Is everyone good, or would you guys like a 5-minute break? I know we had our meeting at 4:30. I need a 5-minute break then. Thanks.
You were looking for a scapegoat.
I was trying. We're back. We'll move on to discussion items. First item of discussion is subject 10.01.
So we are beginning the process of our instructional support levy. So Kevin, will you kind of walk us through what's coming next for us in our instructional support levy?
Right. I know last board meeting we talked about it briefly, but this is a big enough topic that I wanted to make sure that you could see a calendar, more so because it's very date specific. If you remember, I talked about the instructional support levy and what it is. First of all, it's a levy the board is authorized to enforce each year at budget time for 5 years, and each year for 5 years. And at the end of that 5th year, it's up for deciding if you want to participate in the instructional support levy. So at the end of this year coming, FY23, that ends in June of 23, our levy is up. So we're needing to ask the board to continue a levy. I'd mentioned about how it doesn't change property tax, and Gary kind of showed that in his presentation where you could see it going across. So it's not an additional tax, it's an existing tax that we want to continue for the next 5 years. What does a levy pay for? First of all, it's about approximately $7.5 million to our general fund. It is to be used for any general fund use, but when you look at what instructional support levy is, it's to support instruction. And if you think about the things that support instruction, it's some of the things that people have talked about is you talk about your counselors, you talk about your nurses, you talk about your building budget, you talk about your curriculum adoption. It's a lot of things that sit very, very close to students. Yes, it can be staff, but it's staff and stuff that support instruction. It's extremely important. I can't emphasize enough how important this is to continue. Without this, we have a $7.5 million gap that we need to fill. That being said, what I wanted to share with you is our timeline. Today, to July 12th, we will bring this back to you to pass a resolution that you anticipate participating in the instructional support levy. What that does, it sets the table for when the vote is, and it gives us time for the board secretary to publish our intent to participate. We have to wait 10 to 20 days before the August 9th meeting to approve the resolution to participate in the program. It would be for another 5 years, FY23 through 27. And then without a petition to vote, it would go to the Department of Management by September 7th so that they know that we're continuing the instructional support levy. The reason it goes to Department of Management is when we certify our budget every year by April 15th, I certify that with the Department of Management. It's not the DE, it's not any of those, it's to the Department of Management. They're the ones that handle all the taxes and the state aid and those kind of funds. So that's kind of a very quick what it is. I know we talked about it a little bit, but that would be the calendar for that. I believe that link is does not work, and I was trying to get a better link. It airs out. I don't know why, but I was going to show you the adoption of budget and taxes that showed the $7.5 million in our levy with all the other taxes that are levied in each of the funds. I'll make sure that gets corrected so you can see that as an attachment. We'll fix this attachment for this meeting, but we'll have it again on the next meeting just so you have it for reference. Any questions?
Doesn't look like any. Thanks for putting the timeline in here for us.
You bet.
That's it for that. I just got to double check.
Thank you.
Yeah. Director Snyder.
I guess just one obvious question. Is there any reason in the world why a district wouldn't?
I didn't go back and count, but I bet you I would be willing to venture that 95% of the districts have an instructional support levy. You would want to have it. There's no reason not to. It's you would be cutting into funds that would pay for teachers if you didn't. You're going to have to pay for instruction, to pay for textbooks and those kind of things. And if you don't have this levy to help pay for that, you're going to be cutting into your other general fund dollars, which goes directly to staff salaries, which is your most important asset.
Yeah, I can't think of one reason why a district wouldn't have this, because if you don't, it is directly at the expense of students' education. It's robbing the students.
You're exactly right.
Any other questions, comments? Do any of you need any additional information on this to be able to vote to pass a resolution on the 12th? Great job, Kevin.
Thanks.
We're done with that one?
We are.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to subject 10.02, policies for board's first discussion. I will turn it over to Director Snyder.
All right. I don't have the notes on these, so I'm going to do my best to walk us through these. The first one, 501.04, entrance and health requirements. I think we were turning this over to have our district nurse verify that this was how we were proceeding. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Other than that, are there any questions on this?
Are these state requirements
Most
Like-
of these are.
for the vaccinations and the
Yes.
dental and all? Okay.
And again, this is just the first, and I apologize, I don't have the notes on these. I didn't know Allison was going on vacation, or I would have asked her for them, so I apologize. But if you have any questions on these that you think of later, by all means, shoot us an email. And then 502.04, student complaints and grievances. We put in here, about the only thing we changed is, because they recommended putting a time frame in there of when students can file a complaint or a grievance. We looked at another large district, and they had 5 days in there, and we thought that was too restrictive. You want to keep it somewhat restrictive, because the longer it goes, the harder it is for administration to investigate it. So we wanted to keep it reasonable, and we felt 10 days is more reasonable than 5 days. And again, this isn't to have anything resolved. This is literally for a complaint to be filed. Any comments on time frame or questions? And then 505.04 testing program. I don't think we really changed anything on this.
I think it's important. I think it's important to note that when we noticed something that needs to be brought up, or like in this one example, it's the responsibility of the board to review, to approve the evaluation of the testing program. We make note of that and put it in our board agenda planning committee. So as we're reviewing IASB, if we see anything like that that needs board attention, we are putting it in our board agenda committee timeline.
So this didn't look like it had any changes on it, or changes recommended anyway. 507.03, communicable diseases, students. We changed a few things where we added one superintendent or superintendent's designee, and we put district nurse because that's how we operate, rather than a lot of these IASB policies are written with the idea of smaller districts where you may only have a few attendance centers. When you have 20-some attendance centers, the wording's going to be a little bit different. So here, for us, it's district nurse and superintendent or superintendent's designee. Other than that, we hadn't recommended any changes other than those. .04, student illness or injury at school. Again, added superintendent or designee, and again, district nurse. And this is Iowa Code 613.17. Policy 507.05, emergency plans and drills. Basically, this is right out of IASB words. In fact, the last paragraph is literally a legal requirement to have that written as is. Student insurance. This, we did make some changes according to what the IASB had. We felt that requiring health insurance in a diverse district like ours could be it could exclude some kids, and we certainly don't want to do anything to exclude kids. The other thing we talked about at the policy meeting is we do have a way that if a student does not have health insurance, they can actually get health insurance through the district. It's the same insurance that the teachers, that our staff, everybody has in our district, and all they do is pay the small, that their portion of it to get insurance for that student for that activity period.
Did you say the activity period?
Yes.
You want to turn your microphone and say that so everyone can hear?
Sorry, my question was it for the activity period or the year, but confirmation is just for that activity period.
I believe it was just through the time frame of that activity, but I could verify that for sure.
Hey, Jamie, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow in the uptake. Under your emergency plan and drills, it does not specifically talk about Alice, lockdown, that type of training. Do we need to put that in there specifically, that they'll do it once every semester, or do we just assume? I mean, where does it?
It's a good question.
Because it just says fire and
Yeah.
tornado or weather,
And
whatever.
right off the top of my head, I don't know if those are mandated or not. We'll get a question of that. Oh, thank you, Dave.
But as a district, we
It is
mandate they have to do it.
Yes.
So should it be in our policy?
Well, that's where we go between the fine line of administrative regulations and board policy. So,
Okay, just
So that's a good question.
because it was not in the IASB recommendation to put that one in here, so that's kind of what we're trying to get ourselves in line with. We do have administrative regulations about that, so that's a good question. We'll double check on that one.
And then policy 507.07, custody and parental rights. This just basically says we, as a district, do not get involved or take sides in custodial issues. And that as a district, we follow court orders in regards to custodial issues.
I have a question. What if a teacher or multiple teachers are subpoenaed by one of the parents to go to court on this? I mean, it says we're not going to take sides, but you're subpoenaed. So how does that fit into this situation, saying we're not taking sides?
When our teachers are subpoenaed for court, they appear. and they speak as open and neutrally as possible.
Okay.
Uh, 507.08, student special health services. This is a mandatory policy, and again, all we changed in the second paragraph was added superintendent designee or designee. And the last one, policy 507.09, wellness policy. As a district, we are required to have a wellness policy. We pretty much took it from the IASB. We had to, I believe in here it talks about you have to list certain, school districts are required by federal law to have at least one wellness goal in each of the goal areas identified in paragraph 3 of the sample policy. These goal areas include the following: nutrition, promotion, education, physical activity, and other school-based activities that promote student wellness. So most of this we took right from IASB. And we just put at the top where it says insert school district name, and we plugged in our school district name. Part of our initiative with the policy committee in aligning ourselves with the IASB policies is these get vetted already through their attorneys, through that whole process. And part of our fees is utilizing those policies. Now, we can't just take them and instantly apply them without changes. You still have to plug in, your specifics for your district, but we're trying not to completely wordsmith these things to where when there's updates done, we have to go through this over and over. Now, if there's something specific that does relate to our district, by all means, that's what we're putting in there. But we're trying to make these more general. And then if it's something that needs to be defined, that's where administrative regulation comes into place. Because in regards to a policy, what we say we're going to do, we then have to do explicitly as it's spelled out. And that's it for first discussion on those. And again, any questions or anything, feel free, give us a call, give us an email on those. But those are all pretty straightforward, pretty straight from IASB, and not a lot of changes or customizing needed for our district. And that is all for first discussion. President Gosen.
Thank you, Director Snyder. All right. Any other questions on that? All right, we'll move on to subject 10.03, policies for board, second discussion. Again, I will turn it over to Director Snyder.
With these, this is the second discussion on these. I'm not going to go through these one at a time. We've already discussed them. Does anybody have any questions on any of these, or was there a request made that we didn't address? I'm going to run through them real quick to make sure there's nothing that I'm missed that we changed. I think we talked about this before. On student activity program, we talked, there was different options that we could choose in regards to students in athletics and if they can participate in athletics outside of the school while they're participating in a school program. And, we obviously don't want to, again, tell a student you can't. There's no reason why not. That's between the student, the parents, and the coach. If it works, by all means, I say for the student, have at it. There's no reason in the world why we would exclude a student from doing something like that they want to do. That's a parental decision. Other than that, pretty much these are word for word how they were with our last discussion. So on these, for the second discussion, is there any questions now before we vote on them at the next meeting? And again, if you come up with something, because I apologize, I don't have the notes, but if you think of something else, don't hesitate to ask before the next meeting.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Are there any board requests? Seeing none, any administrative reports?
None at this time.
All right. Right before we adjourn, everyone knows the routine. We'll go around the room. I will start with Director Potts first tonight.
Really? I guess I would say I found of the most value and the most important to me was that presentation of the Finance Committee with the spreadsheets talking about where our financial future, and specifically the one that was projecting the enrollment for the next few years. One, it gives us the opportunity to monitor our own finances, to keep us on the straight and narrow. But two, I think it gives us a target to reduce that number of declining enrollment. Whether it's from declining enrollment from people choosing to leave our district, or declining enrollment because we're not attracting people to move to Davenport to come to our schools. It's a target, it's a goal, it's an opportunity, and that's what we need to seize upon. I know I'm like poor Johnny One Note on this, but the future of this district lies in financial stability based on enrollment.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Klein-Jerome.
I also appreciated the salary comparisons so that we got kind of an idea of where we stand on the different positions. And I also appreciate, it's my second time hearing it on the financial key assumptions, key results, where we are as a district. But I think we are better informed now with all of our finances than we have been. So that's a good thing.
Thank you, Director Klein-Jerome. Director Poston.
I was just glad to everyone got to experience what Karen and I experience once a month, and that's having Kevin and Gary Sinclair going through all the financials. It's really an education, and it's Gary and Kevin have been so helpful for the district, and it's going to make our finances, everything, when you look at the key measures, everything's laid out there in front of you, and just follow those key measures, and they are going to give us a heads up on when there's something going awry, and so that we can correct the situation.
Thank you, Director Poston. Director Snyder.
Well, there's a few. Obviously, the comparison I liked, but whenever we hear from students, Miss Mayfield, and I didn't get the second lady's young lady's name, but whenever we hear from students that come in and feel strongly enough that not only do they care about something, but they care about it enough to come in and speak up, I really, really respect that, and I think that's awesome, and I'd like to hear from our kids any chance we get. So to me, that's always a positive. And two, President Gose's Spirit Award for the schools. It's been such an unusual last 15 months. It's encouraging to have something fun with the schools. And I did put on my ballot that if Julie asked, I voted for North, and if Corey asked, I voted for West. But TJ screwed that all up when he said it was unanimous. So, but no, it's fun to have something like that. And I know the parents appreciated it. And that is a time for celebration. That's a time to cut loose. That is a time to scream, to be proud of your kid, to be proud of yourself, just to reflect. And graduations have always been one of the absolute best things about being on the board.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Director Hayes.
Actually, I enjoyed the whole meeting, but I really liked the in-depth discussion from Gary and Kevin regarding our financial health. It's always great to hear exactly where we are and just the information that we receive now in comparison to what we didn't know in the past. So I really appreciate that. And I also, too, like the spirit to, it was a different feeling to actually be there and feel it and just see all of the excitement within the room. So that was nice to see it. This little clip that we had today did not do it justice in any way, but it was really nice, and not to exclude Mid-City, but they were right up there pretty close for the number of people that were in attendance for them. Although it was a smaller group, they were extremely loud as well. So I wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Superintendent Schneckloff.
I will echo my feeling is a sense of urgency. When we give our financial reports, when we listen to students, this meeting tonight had an underlying sense of urgency about open enrollment, about our budget projections, about our instructional support levy. And so coming into the July-August season, a sense of urgency was my takeaway from everything here. I hear people pushing for budgets, make sure we're on track, make sure we're doing that. So I feel a great sense of urgency and optimism.
Thank you, Superintendent. My takeaways, I'm loving all the data that we're getting. We had, our key assumptions and all that. That's something way different than we've ever had. I love that, as well as our comparisons on salaries and things, so we can start to get to the level where we need to be competitive. And then I'm a little biased, but I like the Spirit Award. I thought that was awesome, and it's watching the videos on here definitely doesn't compare to actually being there on the stage. I wish we had a camera by us with our view and just looking out at that. It was very overwhelming. It was great for the parents to be able to, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, whatever, just to be able to, experience that with their students after all their hard work, 12, 13 years in school. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.